Hello, my name's Jennifer. I'm the founder of Jen Marie Writing and Marketing. For most people, I like to describe what I do by saying I build websites and I write stuff. But that's not exactly true. What I specifically do is online branding, content marketing, and UX content strategy. And I design websites. I wanted to clarify my background first because I think it's relevant to my view of a UX writer. There's a lot of debate about the definition of a UX writer and its related job titles. I personally have chosen UX content strategist as my preferred term, although content designer was a close second. I think part of the reason there's such a lack of clarity is because user experience is broad. There are two different approaches to looking at user experience as a discipline. In one school, user experience ties heavily to usability. Its purpose is to make it easier for someone to complete a task. Therefore, a good user experience means high usability. This is the view that many UX writers take, especially when they work with digital products. Of course, I agree with this, but I take the idea of user experience much further. For me, user experience is the emotional response incurred by a user. If there is poor usability, that emotional response will be negative. However, poor usability isn't the only thing that leads to a poor experience. There's also a straight up lack of experience. I've always been a huge fan of creating experiences. See, before I worked as a digital writer, I worked in experiential marketing. This type of marketing believes that the most effective way to relay a message is by creating an experience. I believe the same is true for digital content. As UX writers, our job is to figure out who our users are and create experiences that help them complete whatever task we are proposing, whether it's continuing down the customer journey, successfully navigating through an app, or staying engaged while reading a magazine. Now, of course, this point of view ties heavily with branding because once you start making experiences, you're more likely to be memorable. However, they are not the same. Unlike branding, which is a nice marketing perk, user experience is a critical in our digital age. People want to have real interactions via technology, and this can only be done with experiential content. So, how does this content connect to social media? It's simple. Websites and apps are how businesses communicate with people. Social media is how people communicate with each other. If you are truly focused on connecting with people, you must meet them where they're at. We all have a general idea of what social media is. It's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's LinkedIn. While these are all great examples of social media platforms, social media is quite broader. Social media is an open access information delivery model powered by user driven content. It's also an information storage facility, one that catalogs the content created by individuals, gathers it in one place, the platform, and lets anyone view it. The most important determinant of social media, well, the terminology, the term social media, whereas traditional media is sponsored by an organization or filtered through journalistic integrity, social websites collect the everyday person's words, pictures, and videos. This means anyone can talk about anything and find others that share their interests. This technology enables the creation of topic groups where strangers can share selective information with each other. It helps communities retain information sharing across long distances, and as marketers quickly discovered, it makes it easy to reach a large number of people in a short amount of time. In its initial form, social media represented unadulterated information sharing. For researchers, it can be a gold mine. But we aren't marketers, we're UXers. So we care about creating user friendly solutions in a technology driven world. Much of what we do is focused on usability. That is, the ability to complete tasks safely, efficiently, and effectively. It's a concept passed down from engineering, where usability specialists focused on creating solutions that not only worked, but could easily be used by the everyday man, unlike some of technology's early prototypes. Throughout the 20th century, usability became a standard requirement for vehicles, appliances, electronics, and computers. Eventually, thanks to Microsoft's push for a computer in every household, software usability became imperative, leading to usability in websites and applications. Now, for possibly the first time in history, writers focused explicitly on usability are needed to help millions of people worldwide complete everyday tasks. These people may speak different languages, they may interact with the application in different ways, they may have a cognitive bias that impacts their understanding and produces something other than the product designer envisioned. We may not be able to design for every possible user, but we can do our absolute best to find the words most likely to help them complete their task, and that is what most UX writers think about. However, technology isn't the only place where high usability is needed. Usability is vital for all types of tasks, including knowledge absorption. When providing information via the written word, you must consider the usability of the tools used. These tools can include books, help documentation, or even online training material. For these knowledge tools, there are no engineers, but there are architects. Information architects ensure knowledge transfer objects have high usability. So, how do we plan for and test the usability of our tools? How do we know how well our users can complete their task, whether it's ordering a pizza or understanding the ordering process? We use heuristic methods based on the established guidelines of experts. We observe the users ourselves with task analysis, focus groups, and surveys. We card sort. We prototype. We do everything we can to connect ourselves to the user to understand what they are doing and thinking. Depending on your needs, the process can be expensive and time consuming. Many of these testing methods, such as surveys and card sorting, are low cost and easy. However, some, such as focus groups and prototyping, are more involved. However, another form of user research is becoming more popular due to increasingly complex technology. Since we want our technology to be more lifelike, we need to create more immersive user experiences. To do that, we need real examples of human interactions with technology to teach our computers. That type of data can be found on social media. With digital ethnography, usability researchers can identify typical behaviors of specific cultures and societies. They then use that information to understand user priorities. Utilizing social media for localized ethnographic research helps user experience professionals better visualize who they are creating for. In the marketing world, the principle of social media ethnography aligns with social intelligence, a digital record of everyday human life. We may be interacting with technology, but we're still humans that interact with each other. That's why social media marketing is so powerful. It understands the power of communication within communities and the complexities of how it's done. Unfortunately, because social media is such a powerful marketing tool, many people think of it in terms of marketing instead of user experience. The thing is, they aren't really that separate. User experience is critical to digital marketing efforts because they are digital. If your marketing utilizes technology, the message is lost with poor usability. If your website should convince someone to take some sort of action, failing to use good information architecture will guarantee their flow stays incredibly short. As information professionals, it is our job to properly relay a message to an intended user. It doesn't matter if that message is designed to sell, inform, or explain. UX writers focus on creating the best possible experience in a digital environment. Since the dawn of the internet, technologies created increasingly rich and immersive experiences. We're no longer reading a web page, we are experiencing digital content. We don't even need to search for information. It's served to us on a platter, already well aware of what we like and what we want to know. It's an intelligent web that understands human behavior enough to keep us engaged for up to a minute. Technology has completed amazing feats when it comes to information delivery, but it struggles to recreate a truly human experience. The closest thing that we have to that right now is social media, with its unadulterated access to crowd generated information. Back in 2015, Northwestern University launched an online course via Coursera called Social Marketing. This may not seem that notable. However, at the time, everyone was talking about social media marketing and utilizing an advertising approach over social networks. However, social marketing was something very different. Unlike traditional social media marketing, social marketing is rooted in user experience. If you want to learn more about using social media for business, I highly recommend taking that course. However, for the purpose of this talk, here's the most key takeaway. Whereas marketing has 4 P's, social has 4 C's. The 4 C's of social are content, community, connection, and curation. It is a shift in focus from how we say things to what we say. It's a prioritization of language, authenticity, and authority. It's a better model for thinking about content on the web. Now, this isn't a talk on creating effective social media content, so I won't dive into the aspects of content and curation. However, as UX writers, there is much to be learned from community and connection. The key is learning how to listen. When people communicate publicly over social media, their voice is given a platform. Unlike email, social media is public facing. It's what we want other people to know about us. It's how we want to be seen. The things we say over social helps others get to know us, and many of us use it as a tool to connect to others with similar ideas or interests. Although much of social media nowadays is about being seen, either by individuals or as brands, there are still those that contribute to the social landscape without concern of growing their following. We can learn about these people's interests and opinions. We can learn how they feel about certain topics. We can look at the things they say and how they say it to understand how they communicate. But before we get into the process of listening to social, I really want to dive into this idea of authentic expression via social media. A great example of this is Black Twitter. According to a 2015 online article in The Atlantic, Black Twitter is a force with immense power. Most people recognize the term from numerous social movements in the last decade, including hashtag Ferguson, hashtag Bring Our Girls Back, and hashtag Black Lives Matter. However, it's not a movement, it's a collective of culture, language, and interests based around a singular frame of reference. It is a digital community that offers entry to anyone that understands the context of the information being shared. The ability to create content that resonates with the community is rewarded with social shares. Sometimes that message is shared profusely and garners the attention of those outside of Black Twitter. In case you aren't already familiar with Black Twitter, here is a short video about its role in society from the online publication The Root.
Think back on your favorite Twitter moments of the past decade.
I got beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes.
You name it! Why you always lying?
The OG, cause it's never enough.
What do they all have in common? Melanin. Today's baggage? Black Twitter. Where do politics, memes, Black culture, and activism come together online? You guessed it, Black Twitter. Black Twitter is Twitter. It's a congregation, a community, church. Heck, I'd argue that Black Twitter is the most poppin' space on the internet. But what kind of legacy has it created? Now, where can I find someone who's an expert in all things Black Twitter? Got him! Professor Meredith D. Clark's pretty much a Black Twitterologist.
When people try to juxtapose Black Twitter versus, let's say, mainstream Twitter or just Twitter, the assumption that they're making is that white users and the people who created Twitter are the default. And so whatever white users are doing, that is mainstream or regular Twitter. And we know that that just isn't so. Black Twitter makes Twitter what it is. It is what drives the pithy conversations. I'd say that Black Twitter has shaped culture on Twitter the same way that Black culture has shaped American culture for years. The things that happen on Black Twitter and the people who take note of them are just like so-called culture vultures in other subsets of culture, right? people tend to marginalize Black folks and think what we're doing is gauche or perhaps out of step with the mainstream. And then all of a sudden, imitation becomes a form of flattery that they use. So they pick up the language, they pick up the innuendo. And we've seen the same thing happen with jazz, rock and roll, hip hop.
Black Twitter creates the cool, starting with language. Y'all remember the term on fleek.
Abraz on fleek.
To dance challenges like the In My Feelings challenge, which was started in 2018 by a dude from Queens named Shiggy. The challenge went so far that an FBI fugitive danced his way across the tarmac after being captured, y'all. And live tweeting. Black Twitter loves a good live tweeting session. Scandal totally made live tweeting a thing. And now every poppin' show or movie has a hashtag.
I don't think there's anything that can top it. Is the day that Yahoo News tweeted that Donald Trump wanted a bigger Navy, only they got the N and the B keys mixed up. And so Black Twitter took off and created the so-called N-word Navy. You know, we took something that is a slur that is still very contested in terms of its use, and we had a field day with the jokes.
Clark says that regardless of the shenanigans, Black Twitter is also a space for civic engagement.
What I do think Black Twitter has the ability to do is to foster in people the same sort of sense of responsibility that our Black ancestors had when they created Freedom's Journal, the first newspaper published by two free Black men in the United States, when Ida B. Wells created the Red Record and documented lynchings across the country. That same spirit is being witnessed via Black Twitter when someone says, I see something that is wrong and I believe I can do something about it by using a tool of the media.
Some of those wrongdoings that Clark refers to are police violence towards people of color. Over the decade, Black Twitter has notably disseminated footage and information about violence against Black and brown bodies, like in the cases of Eric Garner's death by chokehold, and Chandra Bland's encounter with police, which led to her mysterious death in jail. But Clark says that this activism on Twitter doesn't just document police violence, and that it also includes calling for accountability within our own community. We see you, hashtag mute R. Kelly. Voices on Black Twitter have been a catalyst for change. Viral hashtags like April Reign's Oscars So White, Tarana Burke's Me Too, Kashawn Thompson's Black Girl Magic, and who could ever forget Black Lives Matter, which grew into a global social justice movement against police brutality and was created by 3 Black women. Hashtags like these shifted the cultural landscape, made the media pay attention to the ways Black people are treated in this country, and changed how we discuss injustices against our people. Author and activist Feminista Jones is what one would refer to as a Twitter OG. She knows about injustices faced by women all too well, and in 2014 created hashtag YouOkSis to take a stand against street harassment. Tell us the story behind YouOkSis.
I was actually out with my son and we were walking, and there was a young woman and she couldn't be more than 22, 23, and she was pushing a stroller. And a man approached her trying to sell his music, and she was polite and was like, no thank you. But he kept following her. You could see she's uncomfortable, but she's trying not to make a scene, and he grabs her arm, and I just was like, are you okay, sis? Because I was like, I'm tired of us just not saying anything. I went home and I told the story on Twitter, and I just got to this point, I put out a call to action. I was like, can we just do something this summer? If you see someone being harassed, can you just ask if they're okay?
On another note, you've been doxxed, you've had death threats made against you. I am curious as to, you think that you are particularly targeted because you are a Black woman and an activist on Twitter.
I think I'm more targeted and have been targeted because I'm an open feminist. When you declare that Black women need to be free and liberated, you're gonna draw hate from white people and non-Black people, and you're gonna draw hate from men. And so you've gotta deal with both of those things. And some of the worst attacks, unfortunately, have come from Black men who hate feminism, and they hate this idea that Black women believe that they need feminism. They see it as an affront to their power. And then at the same time, you're dealing with racism. And you can get into a space where you're constantly feeling like you're defending yourself. And it's part of being a vocal activist. It's part of affirming that an oppressed group deserves to be free.
George M. Johnson is another prominent voice on Twitter. Johnson is a writer, activist, and author, speaking up for the experiences of Black and queer people on the platform.
As a Black queer person on Twitter, what has your experience been?
It's not the easiest, especially like when you're someone as vocal as myself. But I'm also very transparent, and so sometimes transparency is used to attack me. So it's like, if I talk about the fact that I'm HIV positive, right? If I talk about some of the things I've been through, when I'm in a moment where people disagree, they oftentimes will use that to, attack me.
That's dirty. That's
yeah,
kind of low.
And I mean, but it's one of those things that I hate to say it comes with the territory, but it comes with the territory of Twitter. But I do also think a lot of times it's hard for people because people who are heterosexual or people who are white who may know me in a different capacity, when I'm calling out something from that particular community, they may get offended. My job isn't to pacify people. My job is to make us better, but I can't make us better by always worrying about someone else's feelings. And so that then becomes hard.
On Black Twitter, there is definitely a culture of accountability. Sometimes folks just have to get dragged. There's also this culture of clout chasing.
They do anything for clout. They do anything for clout.
Everybody wants that one viral tweet in hopes of becoming an internet celebrity.
A lot of people fail to realize going viral doesn't equal a paycheck. I still work every day. I still write op-eds. I'm still freelance. A lot of people who became a voice on Twitter, it wasn't because they were chasing something to become a voice. They did the work, and when they did the work, the byproduct of doing good work or work in general was that people began following them. But they didn't go into it with the intention of, I'm gonna make people follow me for doing these particular things. And so I think that's kind of the balance that people have to figure out.
While some are still working on that balance, others say the future of Black Twitter is still uncertain.
I think that people are starting to feel like Twitter is not responsive enough to the serious issues that Black people have shared that they have about Twitter. I do wonder if it's even going to exist in the next 10 years. But I'm not concerned because the community exists wherever it was. We were on MySpace, we were on Black Planet, we're on Facebook, we're everywhere. We're going to be everywhere because we are a Black community and we are a global community, so we'll find each other whether Twitter exists or not. When you can change the way companies market and brand their products, that's power. When you can swing votes, that's power. There's so many things that Black Twitter has been able to do as a collective that reflect the power that we have just as a people.
Our Twitter fingers have literally changed the world. And we know that the 2010s wouldn't have been the same without them. Tweet that. How does it look on screen? They look bad in real life. And we do. Was there any notes on that one?
Although Black Twitter is mostly known for its role in social change, it still represents a clear example of a cultural group utilizing digital technology to communicate within the group. There are many of these groups all around the internet connecting over social, whether it's a community for event marketing professionals, a Facebook group for adoptive parents, or people who regularly tweet about user experience. We form groups over social and communicate with a shared language. Understanding this language helps us as user experience writers reach the people we want to inform or assist. There's a lot of information being shared online. Not surprisingly, it's more than most humans can process. And that is why we have text analytics. These software-based solutions access big data and translate portions of it into bite-sized human chunks. What do we do with that information? The most popular use cases include creating more intelligent technology, brand management, and identifying market trends. However, these same conversations can also help us create content that is not only more useful and usable, but also more desirable and credible, key aspects of a positive user experience. Here's how text analytics can help us become better UX writers. The credibility of your content is fundamental to a great user experience. Let's say, for example, you are tasked with creating content designed to form a niche community on behalf of a new brand. That community may not respond to your content simply because your brand is not credible. A much better user-focused approach would consider or include the contributions of someone respected from that community. Social media is one of the best ways to find out who that might be. Hashtags are almost like code. They make it easy for people to share multifaceted messages with minimal words. These tags are a way for users to self-organize their content. However, in communities, they can express a broader idea, such as what we've seen in the advocacy efforts by Black Twitter. Researchers can better understand discussions around the topic by searching its corresponding hashtags. Hashtags also serve as a barrier of entry to outsiders. If you use a hashtag without understanding the discussion around it, you lose credibility. Many niche communities have their own vocabulary that never reaches public consumption. If you're trying to engage with them, knowing these keywords help you craft better conversations. Many grammarians would dismiss these keywords as slang or improper use of the English language, but I challenge them to think a little deeper. Language changes, and if enough people learn a new word, it becomes a part of the language. For example, the Black Twitter video mentioned social media's creation of the word fleek. At first, it was limited to its originating community, the African American, millennial, or Gen Zers. However, it became popular and it's now in the English language dictionary. Fleek is likely a combination of fly and sleek. Fly was popular among African American Gen Xers, cue Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, whereas sleek gained popularity over the last decade, coinciding with the rise of the word fleek. By understanding the word's meanings and its potential origins, we can create content that resonates with this audience, using words such as sleek, slick, sharp, on point, and flawless as alternatives. Text analytics also uses artificial intelligence to calculate sentiment. Here's how it applies to UX writing. Say, for example, you're reading a blog to understand a topic of interest to your users, and you come across a word that you've never seen before. You notice it's being mentioned numerous times, so you research it further. You decide that this word should be used when communicating with your target audience. But do you know how they feel about it? That's what sentiment analysis does. An example, think about the word treble. What comes to mind? You probably thought about music, but if you were my 8-year-old, you probably were anxious because it meant no treat after dinner. Technically, treble means 3-part. So what would happen if you substituted the word threefold for treble? Potentially less happy readers, since the word treble has a way higher sentiment than the word threefold. Now that we understand how social media can help us become better UX writers, here are a couple enterprise-level data solutions for listening to those discussions. Lexalytics uses natural language processing and machine learning to interpret hashtags, slang, and poor grammar into structured data for business insights. Data analysts work alongside technology to understand the conversations people have and deliver better insights on the users. Social Gist analyzes the content of blogs, microblogging, and comment sites like Reddit, WordPress, Tumblr, and Disqus. Particularly useful for product and customer service teams, Social Gist scans multiple conversations around a specific topic and condenses it. There are also some powerful free tools, such as Social Mention. It's a massively scaled down version of Lexalytics, and it's free. Designed for branding, UX writers can analyze sentiment around a certain topic and identify keywords, hashtags, and influencers. If you have your topic but don't know where you can find a corresponding community, this free tool, Alltop, is a great place to start. It lists the most popular blog and microblogging sites by topic. Use it to start your user research or get to know a topic better. Thanks for watching. Once again, my name is Jennifer, and I'm the founder of Jen Marie Writing and Marketing, an online content company dedicated to writing for people, not bots.